Austin Wolf single-handedly reinforcing the most toxic of all gay stereotypes at the peak of Pride Month.
This man needs no introduction. If you do not know who he is, you live under a rock. So this is Mr. Austin Wolf. And the man is a man mountain. Look, he's even making me look tiny in the picture. But yeah, this guy is a legend in the game. Like, everyone knows who he is. He's one person I find super inspiring, motivational. He's always someone that I've looked up to, like with just fitness wise, because his body is insane. Like, he is sculpted like a god. He's an amazing guy to work with, super friendly, like one of the nicest guys.
Is he really, though? Is he really a nice guy? That's a creator by the name of Peachy Boy. He's also an adult star. When he said he's a super nice guy, this exchange that I want to talk about between Austin Wolf and one of the guys that apparently he had filmed with speaks to what a nice guy he is. And they had this exchange over Instagram. So the guy puts, as you know, I had literally just turned 18 that week. I know it was technically consensual, but I was desperate and not in my right mind that night. I should have never effing messaged you. I literally told you I had regrets the day after, and you told me not to worry, but you still posted it 2 weeks later. I'm 20 now and it still haunts me. So when I see you're still circulating it as a promo for your OF, I just can't believe you would do that. I'm just please asking you to at least not promote it on your page anymore. I literally get nightmares from still being exposed after all this time. And then Austin Wolf responds with, you are a legal adult, stop messaging me. Which, if you know anything about Austin Wolf, he's one of the biggest in the industry. He's got 936,000 followers on Twitter, and he's got 773,000 followers on Instagram. I don't know how many on TikTok. He does have a TikTok. He also has an OF. He also owns his own site that's not unlike OF or one of those adult sites, and that is called For My Fans. And so when I say he's really famous and popular in the gay community, he is really famous and popular within the gay community. So if he gets a message like this from a person that had just turned 18 and is now 2 years later still traumatized by this particular thing or the effect that it's had on his life, because we all know when you're 18, yeah, you're an adult, but in a lot of ways you don't realize the consequences of what you're doing. So with Austin being in his 40s, and it's just one person saying, can you please take this down? I think if you're really the nice guy that Peachy Boy was portraying him as, I don't think that should be an argument, and I don't think that it should be at all even a discussion. He said he's not comfortable with it anymore. You have plenty of content that you can distribute that the other actors are fine with. Just go ahead and pull it.
He might look big and intimidating, but honestly, he is super nice.
And then somebody also posted this, because, you know, everything comes out after a person gets into trouble. This is unconfirmed. I'm just letting you guys know what some of the stories were about him. But this one says, yes, this is Austin Wolf's whole thing. He gets inexperienced, barely legal twinks who have never done pee to hook up with him, forces them to agree to do it on camera, and chokes them out without first asking for consent. It is incredibly dangerous, and it was almost definitely not consensual. One commenter in this Reddit thread described getting literal brain damage from his choking and not being able to do anything about it because Austin is too big and powerful to be taken down by some 18-year-old twerp who doesn't want to get involved in a legal battle with the most famous gay P star alive. So anytime you guys hear me say P, that's going to stand for adult film, just so you know. And Twitter is abuzz about it. And there was a video somebody posted where literally while shooting a scene, he choked this guy to the point where the guy passed out. And then the guy, you see, he's not acting on any level. He goes out and then he's back and then he's just like, I just passed out. And then he's like, whoa. And Austin, keep in mind, did not stop the whole time. He just kept doing what he was doing while this guy is passed out. And this guy in the video said that he had just turned 18. And so he passes out, he comes back to, and then at that point, Austin Austin is behind him. So if you're giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, maybe you could say that he didn't notice that he had passed out, because it was pretty quick if you watch it on the video. Too bad I can't show you guys the video here, but it's not that kind of content. And so if you're giving Austin Wolf the benefit of the doubt and you say, okay, maybe he didn't know that that had gone down just yet, when the guy tells him, I just passed out, and then he still keeps going, and he was like, you think I give an F? And just keeps going. So that gives you an idea of the kind of person that we're dealing with here.
And super easy to work with.
What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we go any further, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to leave a comment just to help me on the algorithm, but you don't know what to comment, just leave a knife, because it's quite likely that the entire gay community is going to come for my neck on this one. If you guys aren't familiar, this is a really big situation in the LGBTQ community, specifically in the gay community. This is a big thing for a couple of reasons, because you guys may have never heard of Austin Wolf before, but he is really that big of a deal in the gay community. I had no idea that any of that was going on like that, as far as his reputation for having a type, because he's not one of the people that I've ever followed. But supposedly there have been whispers about this guy forever and his type of behavior, because apparently he had a reputation for the most part, only going for the super young looking guys, otherwise known as twinks, but twinks to the extreme. If you're not familiar with twinks, those are usually smaller body type guys, a lot of times hairless, usually between 5'6" and 5'8", something like that. Usually not a lot of muscle, prepubescent looking is what most people would describe them as, but they're an actual type, they're adults, and a lot of them are in adult entertainment. And so I'm going to read the full story to you guys. But before I get to that, I want to set a couple things up. I will be choosing my words very carefully, because I'm trying to avoid YouTube either demonetizing this video or suppressing it, because I do think that I have a perspective that could be helpful for the community, because I think there is a lesson to be learned here. And I think that there is some growth that needs to happen, specifically within the gay community, because while I may be a part of the umbrella, as in the LGBTQ plus community, I am specifically a gay man and part of that community more than anything else. And sometimes it's important to check your own. And sometimes I feel like we need to be reminded that lately the community in general has been more worried about the optics and not as worried about maybe looking at where our growth is and where we need to be. And it's hard to admit it even when it's on a personal level and it's you, but it's especially hard to admit it as a community, because we're constantly told that we're being attacked, which I've said over and over. We're not being attacked. People are more open to gay, especially, more than ever. But I think sometimes we'll prop these people up because they have celebrity status within the gay community, because Austin Wolf is without a doubt one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gay adult star out there. Was, apparently. But for all intents and purposes, because this just happened 2 days ago, that's the way people have seen him. A lot of people didn't like him. I didn't really know that. I don't run in his circles. I got introduced to him one time when I was performing in Seattle, and I don't mean personally introduced to him, but I got introduced to who he was. One time when I was in Seattle, and I was on Grindr. I don't know if he lived there, but he was also on Grindr. And he's an attractive guy, so I clicked on his profile, and then I saw that he was an adult performer. Immediately, that didn't appeal to me, because a lot of times if you're on Grindr and you talk to the adult creators, what they want is, even if you have to do your part anonymously, they want you to participate in some way in something that's going to be filmed. That's always been my experience. And so I usually just skip those accounts. And this was probably about 10 years ago. So I was familiar with him since then, but just on the periphery, because with the exception of very few, there aren't a lot of adult stars that I actually follow. And in in case you guys can't tell, this isn't going to be one of the super fun, jokey ones. I'm sure at some point I'll say something stupid just because I always do. But for the most part, this is just me letting you guys know why this is such a big deal and why I think that this is really a good learning moment for the gay community and a time to really step back. As I said, there's nothing good about what happens in this story. But if we can learn and grow and do better moving forward, that may put us in a better position for generations to come as gay people. And rather than worry about what people think of us, do our best to give them nothing to talk about. So I'll read this story and then I'll explain to you guys why it is these adult stars become such a big deal in the gay community and where I think that actually comes from and what we need to do, in my opinion, moving forward. So the headline is adult film star Austin Wolf is arrested over horrific child P video charges, which from here on out will be referred to as CP. Adult film star Austin Wolf has been arrested in New York City for child use materials, according to the Justice Department. Wolf, real name Justin Heath Smith, is charged with sending and receiving hundreds of videos of CP via the Telegram messaging application between March 24th and March 28th. The gay P star, 43, allegedly sent and received messages that depicted children as young as infants, including a video showing a 10-year-old child bound and R-worded. He is also accused of possessing hundreds of additional videos containing CP in his Manhattan apartment. One of Wolf's last social media posts chillingly reads, "Have you seen what happens to little boys that follow me to the locker room?" U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said, as alleged, Justin Heath Smith received and distributed hundreds of recordings containing CP, including a ghastly video showing a young child bound, beaten, and R-worded. Our investigation into Smith is ongoing, and we urge anyone with information about Smith's conduct to call the FBI. Together with our law enforcement partners, we will relentlessly pursue those predators who victimize children and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Wolf is scheduled to be arraigned in Manhattan court on Friday. He is accused of one charge of distribution and receipt of CP and one count of possession of CP. Wolf faces up to 20 years if convicted of the charges. Investigators say they caught Wolf after they seized the phone of the person he had allegedly been exchanging CP with. An undercover FBI agent then contacted Wolf's alleged anonymous Instagram account. Wolf reportedly provided details to confirm his identity in the chats. The FBI then executed a search warrant at Wolf's apartment, where they said they found an SD card with hundreds of videos showing child. And so this was on June 28th that he actually ended up getting arrested. And since then, they have decided to hold him without bail because he's considered a flight risk. And now people in the gay community are turning on each other on Twitter because I think it's showing a part of the gay community that a lot of people would rather pretend isn't there or hasn't been going on or hasn't been normalized. In the adult industry in general, among the top searches for straight or gay is teen. So keep that in mind, that this isn't just exclusive to the gay community. But at the same time, I think within the gay community, it has been normalized to a point where a lot of people don't even think about it. And a lot of the stuff, if you think about the categories by title, are pretty depraved, and I think can definitely blur the lines for people that are already predisposed to this kind of behavior. Because when some of the biggest searches within gay adult are father, son, uncle, nephew, I think that definitely does lend itself to people that already may be thinking that way, and it makes them think that it may be okay to actually act on these things that really they should be getting help for if those are the kinds of feelings that they have about young people. And I do think that other stars that he's worked with should come out and denounce him but I also think that most of them are worried about their own careers, as far as this might be, and I'm not exaggerating or being silly, this might be like a gay Diddy situation, except for since this is so on the fringes and adult and not mainstream, and it's also gay, all of those people can go down. Like, it can be argued when you're talking about Diddy and mainstream and he was dealing with politicians and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying there's not gay politicians that may be involved if there is a ring like this. One of the other adult stars that has his own channel here on YouTube had posted on Twitter, as a victim who was brutally R-worded by well over 50 men by the age of 10, I'm speechless. The fact that Austin Wolf was the golden boy of gay P makes it that much worse. I can tell you that men like this never victimize alone. They operate in rings. May he burn in hell. Which I think would tell you that by the story that I just read to you. It seemed like it was a network, like they tell a friend, they tell a friend, and they tell a friend, that kind of thing. And then that's how everybody gets what they're trying to get. This is how out in the open it was, apparently, or how many people knew that there was something definitely wrong. And this one is terrible. This one was posted by a guy on Twitter that says, I met up with the really famous creator last night who's currently AW, Austin Wolf's favorite bottom. Like, I know this for a fact because he sleeps at his house all the time, and he told me this man told him he always have wanted to have a son to F him, and that he is currently in love with an 11-year-old. 11. Like, we have all been known, but to have it confirmed and worse than we thought. God bless. And so I think that might explain why more adult stars aren't coming out and just saying, hey, I denounce this guy 100%. I had no idea he was doing that. As far as people calling them out and saying that they should apologize for ever working with him, I don't really know that that's necessary, and only because sometimes, like I said, it happens like on Grindr, and so you don't even know the person. They just hit you up or you hit them up, and then you guys hook up and they'll end up recording together. That's a lot of times called a collaboration. People do collaborations on YouTube all the time, but it's a more wholesome collaboration. So I don't think that all of the people that he's worked with necessarily knew that that's what he was into. And even though some of these tweets are saying that that's what he was known for, I had seen videos with him and actual other muscle guys on Twitter. So it wasn't like it was exclusively that type. So if you're not even that type and you're not paying attention like that, how would you know what it is he's into? Then there was one tweet I saw where this guy had said, I've got 17 mutual friends with Austin Wolf. If these people don't unfriend him by the end of the day, I'm going to start posting your names on my page. And it was just like, well, why would you do that? Because as somebody commented underneath that, they were like, this story was posted less than 5 hours ago, and you're expecting people that might be at work to have not only seen the story, but also be able to access their phone so that they can unfollow this guy. And it wasn't breaking news like mainstream, so I could see somebody not even knowing it had happened until today even. And then also, when you're expecting people to remember who they followed on Twitter, sometimes you just randomly follow people on Twitter. You don't know their names, you don't know anything about their background, you just saw a clip you liked and you were like, okay, that's sexy, I'll definitely check that out again. And you follow it. And then there's also some people that don't go on Twitter for months at a time. Like when Twitter was owned by Jack Dorsey before Elon Musk took it over, there would be literally months where I would not be on Twitter. And I'll tell you honestly, if I saw a story like that, I definitely wouldn't run to my Twitter and see if I was following that person to unfollow them. I wouldn't even be thinking about Twitter or Instagram or any of that stuff at that point, especially if I was just an everyday person. Like, the only reason I found out about this story so fast is because basically social media is a part of my job, so I pay attention to things. But as far as if I were a regular person, who knows when I would have found out this story was even happening. It's not like what happens in the adult world is going to be at the top of my things that I pay attention to. It's just not. So I think that that part is very unproductive. But what I do think would be productive is to let you guys know kind of the history of why our adult stars are such a big deal in the gay community. And I know for my generation and older, the reason that they were such a big deal was because we had no representation when we were coming up, which is going to sound silly, but it's just 100% true on what it was. So you didn't have anybody that you could support that you were like, oh, that's an openly gay person that I can really say that I not only relate to, but think is good looking and in your head could be attainable, because you could actually have a chance with them. When it came to regular pop stars and regular actors, if you were young and gay, when I was young and gay, it was like none of those people, you didn't feel like you could ever have a chance with them because they were all into girls. That's what you thought, you know, and it was a more naive time, at least for a lot of us that grew up in smaller towns. And you got to remember, gay pride wasn't in every city back then. We weren't living in the world that we're living in now. And so really, those were our celebrities. Those were our stars. We could actually put our support behind them. And yeah, it was, you know, nice to watch the videos. Like I said, I'm watching my language here. There's different ways that I want to put this. But yeah, you'd be into the videos or whatever. But sometimes even when you were young and gay during my time, just seeing guys kiss was a lot for you, as far as like, wow, that's like men can actually express affection. It doesn't just have to be the intercourse part of it. There's also just men kissing. And I know some of you, if you're straight and watching this, you probably haven't made it this late in the video. But if you are, I know for some of you that grosses you out. But if this is just legitimately the way you're wired, and whether it's through nature or nurture, this is where you found yourself, that you are actually gay. And if you were to ever ask any gay people, well, maybe we have different ideas of how we got here, as far as whether we were just 100% born this way or there were influences that maybe got us there. While we may have different stories on how we ended up at this destination, I think we all can agree that once you find yourself here, that's what it is, and it's not going to change. And people have tried conversion therapy and all sorts of stuff, but there's just no fixing you. So at that point, you just look for other people that are like-minded and maybe can make you feel a little more normal. And I think that we are in a good place as the LGBT community, and gay specifically, where people do see us as more normal. And now I think it's up to us as a community to take that another step and say, yeah, let's be more normal. Let's stop making the adult stars, because that's always going to be a part of it. I'm not saying completely cut it out, and I'm not saying I'm completely going to stop watching adult entertainment. But what I will say is that I think we should start moving to a more respectable spot as the gay community, just because we do have more opportunities now to support our own in a mainstream venue. Like, there are actually gay actors that we can support. There are actually lesbian actresses we can support. There are ways that we can help normalize what it is we are even more, even if just for ourselves, even if we have to go to smaller art house theaters in order to see our own on the screen. Maybe we won't be in the big budget movies, and maybe for right now we don't need to be. Maybe right now we need to prove that we will actually support our own in a mainstream way, and stop turning these people into our celebrities. Stop turning these people into our icons. Because in a lot of cases, even under the best circumstances, when everybody is over the age they should be, it's still in a lot of cases a predatory industry, and there are a lot of young gay men that are, at the end of it all, not necessarily feeling the best about their experiences. And I'm not saying this about all adult stars, but there are a fair amount of adult stars, gay, straight, whatever the case is, that for them, this is a trauma response. Like I said, not all. So I'm not trying, I know some people that are in that business, very good friends with some people that are in that business, that are well adjusted, and this is just what they like and what they chose to do. And there is a place for that. That's why I'm saying, I'm not trying to say that we should all just 100% give it up and start living this puritanical lifestyle and trying to conform to everything that's supposed to be mainstream and Christian. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that there are a lot of people that think that this is the only way to get any notoriety or any real fame in the gay community. And in some cases, they are right. Because a lot of us as gay men especially will not support people if it's not something within that vein, if it's not overly sexualized. And maybe that's something that while we're trying to act like gay pride and gay pride month is the biggest deal in the world, maybe we need to turn it into a bigger deal for us and stop trying to get the rest of the world involved in it and just be like, hey, why don't we make it our own thing? And I'm going to do a longer video about this coming up that's specifically about gay pride and where I think it needs to go. But I will give you guys just a hint of the way that I'm thinking is rather than trying to make everybody in the world participate in gay pride and straight people be involved in it too, and even possibly doing away with the parades and the festival itself and just saying, hey, why don't we turn this into a month where we actually make it a point to support our own? Instead of spending a couple $100s or even a couple $1,000s to fly to some gay pride across the country like San Francisco or New York or Miami, instead of doing that, why don't you take that money and actually invest it into your local gay community? Support a gay mom and pop. Support several gay mom and pops in your own city. Build our own community and stop uplifting these people that in a lot of cases clearly aren't proving to be worth the attention and the fame and the money that we're giving them. How about we show our young people, and mind you, I spent a lot of years myself being an SW, and kind of on that end, which I've talked about before, was people hired me because I was young looking. Until I was 25, I was working as being a 19-year-old. And that's because even back then, you knew that the younger you were, the more work you were going to get. And like I said, I don't think that's a gay exclusive thing, because if you think about it, Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande were catching heat about that several years ago, where people were saying it's because they look like prepubescent girls. And it's like, at that point, what are you supposed to do if you're like I was when I was younger? You're an Ariana Grande or a Selena Gomez. It's like, should I not work, or should I not at all express my sex appeal even though I'm an adult, because some people think that it gives people the wrong idea because I look younger than I should be? So that's something that societally, I guess, we have to kind of grapple with and figure out how you actually make that a thing. Because I can tell you, when I was younger, I had dated a couple of guys that were real creeps, you know, and I didn't know any different, but I had dated a couple of guys that really did like me because I was young and I was small and they could project this fantasy onto me. And there was one time where a guy that I was in a long-term relationship with, where I actually did get asked by him to say that I was 15 years old. One night when we were obviously getting ready to do our thing, and I was like, no, that's weird. And literally that's what I told him. And I didn't like that part about him, but I was in love with him. He was my first real relationship, so I didn't know anything about anything really, you know, which I had been with other guys, but that was my first actual relationship. And so I didn't know that he was being really inappropriate, I guess you could say. I was just thinking, since we were together, that it was part of my job as his partner to be a place for if he wanted to tell me what his fantasies were or what he wanted. But when he said that, I was just like, yeah, no, that's weird. I don't want to say that I'm 15 years old or 16 years old or any of that stuff. I don't want to do that. But what I'm saying is, there were plenty of relationships and hookups that I had since then, when I was still young looking like that, that completely weren't about that, that weren't projecting that onto me. They just liked me because they liked me. And yeah, I happened to be small and whatever else, and they were attracted to the way that I looked, but they weren't at all being creep at all. So it's not a thing where it's specific to the gay community. And I know that some people are worried about people on the right, as they love to say, like exploiting this. And there already have been headlines about it, because during Pride Month this happens, which is absolutely terrible that it had to happen during this time of year, because there's already been so many strikes against us and so many people saying that we're groomers and we're after the kids and whatever else. And so it's just been a horrible, horrible Pride season anyway. But then this happens, and I think more gay people are worried about the way we look than actually thinking about what it is that's really going on in our community and how it is we can actually serve and uplift our own, if we're going to pretend that that's really what we're about and that's really what we want from the outside world. It's like, we're spending so much time taking care care of the lawn that we don't pay attention to the inside of the house. The inside of the house is literally a mess, and not just because of things like this. There's just a lot of things that are wrong with the gay community right now, or that we could definitely work on. And then tweets like this aren't helpful, in my opinion, except every right-wing nutjob will now use this to further their BS against LGBT plus people. Yeah, well, that's what I think we need to worry about least, is what it looks like from the outside, and actually work on what's going on internally. And I don't know why other gay people will get mad at me for saying this, but some gay people will get mad at me for saying this. There's so many ways that we could be improving our own community rather than looking to the outside world and saying, validate us, straight people, validate us. Tell us everything about us is great. Recognize our relationships, respect our relationships. How about we respect our own relationships? How about we start there and then work our way out? How about we do it that way? Because stuff like this is absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely horrible, and it should not be happening. But at the same time, there is some part of our community that is fostering that. There is some part of our community that is normalizing that. And I think that altogether, we need to collectively put our foot down and say, we need to stop encouraging this. We need to stop allowing people to have the opportunity to blur these lines by us not blurring the lines ourselves. And like I said, if you want to say, because when I was younger, I used to work and say that I was 19 forever, because I was 19 even before I was 18. I shouldn't say it like that, but it's 100% true. Technically, I was 21 before I was 16. But also back then it was different in the way that there was no place for me to go other than be with adults. So that's the other thing that I think we need to remind our youth in the community, is you don't have to be like me and make your mistakes with grown men. You can make your mistakes with other kids that are your own age, which isn't making mistakes. It's learning and it's growing up, and it's very normal. That's what straight kids get to do. And I'm not saying straight kids are never the victims of predatory behavior. I'm not saying that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, straight kids get to go to prom. Straight kids get to go to homecoming. Straight kids get to date kids their own age. And now, with the world being the way it is, and the internet, and kids your own age being more open as far as them being comfortable with themselves, and the other kids around you being more open-minded to what you are, why not take advantage of that and live as an actual kid? Why are you trying to be in this adult world where in a lot of cases you're going to end up hooking up with a guy that's going to be older than you and have a bunch of emotional baggage that you, as even like an 18, 19-year-old, don't need to deal with? You could be dealing with other 18, 19-year-olds and learning together like that, actually learning to be eventually healthy and productive adults, and at the same time satisfying any urges that you want to have fun and hook up and whatever else. Why not do that instead of fantasizing about the daddy? Why not normalize, as the gay community, encouraging our young people to actually be with other young people? And then maybe that will lead to even healthier adult relationships in that same generation and for the generations coming up. And then we do reach a more organic normalization within society where people don't feel like it's been put on them. They've been growing up seeing their gay friends at school. They don't have to be taught about it because it's just as normal as everything else. And that's the way, in my opinion, that the LGBTQ, specifically gay community, can find its way to the real equality that they're looking for, rather than this force feeding and trying to make people accept us as something that maybe it's going to be really hard to convince them that we are without just showing them. It's like that saying, I can show you better than I can tell you. So that's my 2 cents on it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Sorry this video was so long, but this was just a good reason to actually talk about what I wanted to talk about. And like I said, nothing good other than Austin Wolf going to prison forever, or for as long as he possibly can. It looks like 30 years is the maximum that he can get, but they're saying that he'll probably sell a bunch of people out and end up getting a plea deal. It's unfortunate that that's the way the legal system works, but that's the way the legal system works, and we've all gotten used to that being the deal. So I don't really feel like anything can come, especially for the kids, nothing good can come from this situation. So I'm not acting like it's actually good this happened. It's not good that this happened on any level. But like I said, if maybe we can start a conversation that will lead us as the gay community and and gay men to having healthier generations coming up. And maybe it's a big ask, but maybe one day just eliminating this kind of behavior and the sickness that makes people think that this is even not only acceptable, but hot in the first place. Because it is being very much glamorized in the gay community and has been for several years. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.